Michael, I'm glad to see that you've escaped your captors and you are now back to the lands of audio quality that is consistent and appreciable.
I negotiated my release, and I have penance I have to pay later, but, it's worth it to be back home.
What that math do?
So you have
That's the penance. No, penance, not penis. Though that will factor into the penance.
I just thought you were mispronouncing it.
I'm a connoisseur of penance.
He's got that woolen mallard he's got to go beat everybody with.
Ooh.
Oh no!
I didn't have a comeback for it.
I'm dropping shit. Don't mind me.
Why can't I hold all these lemons?
What's your motivation?
It's a meme. Sorry.
What?
So tell me about that French press, you hoity-toity fuck.
I've had a French press for a while, but I just really wanted coffee. And then I got to show off, even though this is an audio medium, no one can see it, I have a Bones coffee mug.
Yeah, you're holding it the wrong way, fuck ass.
Yeah, I understand. You can't see the logo, but it's a cool...
Well,
yeah.
This episode of the Disinformed podcast has been brought to you in part by Bones Coffee.
If only.
Bones. It's the most erect you're ever going to be while drinking.
Mm-hmm. And how?
Yes.
I'm drinking the gingerbread coffee, and it is fantastic.
Yeah, I am an absolute devotee to the Bones coffee, as well we know. But these days, I do not have Bones in my cup. I just finished off a little bit of the old dank Nick, because Mr. Watkins here is a delight at gift giving, and I really enjoyed the Dark Sky, so thank you for that.
Honestly, if you just find what works and then you just repeat it until the person stops liking it.
That's how you got married.
You're not wrong. We are legally bound.
Boys and girls, is how an orgasm is caused.
What's that?
Speaking
What
of
that
orgasms,
is.
Funny, isn't that just a funny word for being bummed out?
Yeah.
Speaking of
exactly.
orgasms, hi-el come slingers, and welcome to another stirring installment of the Disinformed podcast. I'm Shane.
I'm John.
I'm Michael.
I'm Courtney.
And Courtney's also coming to you live and direct from the sewing room today, so let's all send thoughts and prayers her way.
Your
Help!
Your setup there looks a lot cuter. Well, actually, no. I like the pug better.
Yeah. Might have to mix it up.
Is Jonah out there?
No, he's at work, but I figured with the dogs as loud as they were last week to try to mix it up and see if this works better, and so far I hate it, so...
Oh, well,
Yay.
I appreciate it as the editor.
Yes, any deadening that you can give to Michael will make him a much happier man. Necrophilic fuck.
Yeah, give me them dead air. Mm-hmm.
Now, speaking of dead air, I have a story to tell you from my travels out in the world while I was gallivanting on New Year's Eve.
Uh-oh.
Oh boy.
Okay.
John's official credo that he gave to me, that 40 is the new curmudgeon, I'm apparently living that life, because this actually transpired, and I'm not being hyperbolic. I'm the only person wearing a mask in this establishment, because after everything that has gone on in the last few months, I figured I'm dodging this shit like Neo. I'm just whipping myself backwards every chance that I get. So I'm sitting here, and this very interesting individual, I'm not going to defame him any further than I need to with this story, starts asking me questions because I'm not the bass player for this band. So he's trying to vet me by what's my favorite Lost character and why. And yeah, so after about the 8th question, every time he asks me something, I respond in my normal way. And yes, I have a lower voice. I may have been mumbling, and I'm wearing a mask. So there's a lot of inhibitors here to him understanding what I'm saying. And every time I said something, he goes, "What? Huh? What?" And after about the 8th time, I lost my composure entirely. I just said, "Just don't fucking talk to me, okay? I'm sure there's plenty of other people who can give you more riveting conversation than this happy horse shit. I don't have time for this." At which point, everybody else who was sitting around me at the table riotously laughing because I just shut that shit down, and he got very upset and stood up and left. But yeah, so apparently I am my real actual self, and it's starting to spill out around the seams these days because I couldn't help it.
Old Graybeard over there has an attitude problem.
So yeah, that's the quote that existed for the entire evening was, "Yeah, just don't fucking talk to me, okay? Like, this isn't gonna work out well for either of us. Just leave it alone."
I mean, if he wanted to get to know you, he did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Way better than which favorite Lost character are you?
I mean,
Yeah. I'd say intimately. Had the balls to tell me John Locke wasn't an asshole. I was like, okay, grow up.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well,
What?
now I know what this episode's about. We've got to talk about John Locke.
I don't know who this is.
Anybody who's bald is automatically a prick. I'm just going to say that just right off the top here. It's way too much testosterone and not enough pussy.
And that actor is pretty good at playing assholes. I feel like that's one of his typecasts that he does on
Indeed.
occasion. Yeah.
And yet another person who got to take a shot at Peggy Bundy, and I don't know how to respond.
Much like the show, I am lost.
Huh, go figure.
Just like everyone that watched the show.
Also lost, yes.
True.
Well, speaking of convoluted storylines and things that folks can't often wrap their heads around, I am very excited to give you today's topic. But for the uninitiated amongst you listening for the first time, our humble condolences. But what we typically do on this glorious show is we delve into random esoteric topics, and in the course of explaining them to one another, we lie about them. That is the shtick. It is a lot of fun, but we do not let you leave disinformed. Oh, no. We have a denouement at the end of the show where we explain what was lied about so you can amble off and tell your friends. But this evening, we're going to talk about something that I know is very near and dear to John's heart. We're going to talk about Dick.
Ooh.
Got me a case of the vapors.
Philip K. Dick, to be precise. And I
Is
have
that a sex move?
if only. That's what she said. So I have 10 lies for you this evening.
Oh, come on.
I love it. Don't lament this. Again, the more lies I give you, the better opportunity you have to guess them, friends. So, I mean, one of them is a downright layup, and I'm just going to tell you that off the start.
And that's going to be the one we're going to miss.
Is it that his name is actually Philip K. Pussy?
Nope. But if he did, she'd appreciate it.
The more lies you add, the more chances of us to look like assholes because we don't know anything.
Hey,
All I
it's
have to
okay.
do is breathe to be an asshole. I live in this world.
Well, I'm the English major who didn't realize that Milton didn't write Dante Alighieri's great work. So, I mean, everybody can be an asshole depending on the day of the week it is.
That's because Michael's voice was wrapping a noose around your neck and you couldn't think.
Furthermore, also, thanks to Dr. Michael, who's listening now and enwrapped, that he called you on your bullshit. I'm not sure if you saw those comments, Michael. But he's like, yeah, he got that from the other show and also got several of his other jokes that he tried to pass off as his jokes straight from Behind the Bastards. So,
Oh, shit.
you've been called on your shit, son.
Wow.
You wouldn't
Okay.
expect plagiarism from a college professor, Michael.
Certainly not. Oops.
I'm not
Yes.
mad. I'm just disappointed.
I guess I now have
You
to
know?
vet my stuff now that we have people listening to the Better podcast.
I was going to say, you can't constantly refer people to another show and expect that no one's going to take you up on it.
I just figured no one listened to anything I had to say, so I
you're-
feel better about it now.
You're wrong on all counts, my friend.
As is the case.
Indeed.
Ah.
But speaking of things that could never conceivably happen, we're going to dive into a little science fiction today. But there are few American authors that have impacted the zeitgeist of film and television in the past 35 years more than the visionary science fiction author Philip Kindred Dick. A glance through his... I know you were going to say it. Yes, that is his middle name.
Okay.
Yes.
I
Can't dangle
I
that
didn't
in
want
front
to
of me.
be I didn't want to be that person, but I was going to be that person.
John got very excited, and I saw his eyes light up.
Fucking jumped through the screen like a spider monkey.
Indeed. Okay. Shock the monkey tonight. A glance through his adapted works reveals a treasure trove of sci-fi filmic adaptations, including classics by Ridley Scott, Steven Spielberg, and Paul Verhoeven. The TD...
Who's Paul
TDs. Paul Verhoeven.
Who's that?
Who dat
He's
is?
an actor or a director.
Who that is? What he make? That sounds familiar.
Movies.
He makes
That's
movies,
what directors
John.
What kind of movies he make?
If
Is he
you
a
let
butts
me
in it?
Science
finish my
fiction.
fucking sentence, I'll tell you, you slack-jawed shit.
I like my jaw. It's fine. I like my jaw.
Indeed. Well, I'll adjust it for you. So, the TV adaptation of his novel The Man in the High Castle has enjoyed multiple seasons on Amazon Video, along with an entire series of short films entitled Philip K. Dick's Electric Dreams. This is also not to omit Blade Runner 2049, Denis Villeneuve's lauded sequel to Scott's film, which was widely considered one of the best films of 2017. In short, and Paul Verhoeven directed the most recent rendition of Total Recall, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, I saw that one time.
Yeah, that's what it is. I'm just gagging on my own soul here, so forgive me. In short, this man is a juggernaut in the concept department. His life, however, was anything but picturesque. So PKD wrote 44 novels and roughly 121 short stories during his tenure as an author, most of which were first published in an array of science fiction magazines and pulp serials. His fiction explored varied philosophical and social questions such as the nature of reality, perception, human nature, environmental impact, and identity, commonly featuring characters struggling against elements such as alternate realities, illusory environments, monopolistic corporations, drug abuse, authoritarian governments, and altered states of consciousness. Material listeners of Michael's episodes will certainly be familiar with.
Yeah.
But, whether they be spacefaring memory thieves, android-hunting future cops, or Nazi double agents, Dick's characters continue to resonate with audiences long after his death in 1982. The man has been dead almost as long as I've been alive, so something to be said for that.
Yeah.
So with all of that said, in order to truly grasp the wonder of the author's work, we must first make an effort to understand the man himself and the Herculean struggle he and those around him endured as he whelped these strange, stirring, and striking stories into the world. Everybody with me so far?
Yep.
This is Harlan Sanders Part 5, in case you weren't prepared.
Oh,
Yay,
shit.
I know this one.
So it is often noted that Dick endured a detached and tragic childhood. Philip and his twin sister, yes, I know, we're gonna be fraught with double entendres.
What a deliberate way you wrote that sentence.
Yes. So Philip and his twin sister, Jane Charlotte, were born 6 weeks prematurely on December 16th, 1928 in Chicago.
Michigan.
Oh
and
no, he's got a case of
Chicago.
the Michaels.
I'm swallowing
It's
my
happening.
own tongue this evening, and I'm looking for it. But speaking of Chicago, since we were just on the topic of O'Hare, yes, was born in Chicago, Illinois, to Dorothy and Joseph Dick, the latter being an agent of the United States Department of Agriculture. Jane's death on January 26, 1929, 6 weeks after their birth, profoundly affected Philip's life, leading to the recurrent motif of the phantom twin in his various works. As a further cause of emotional duress, his parents elected to engrave his name on the tombstone next to Jane's, intending for them to be interred together upon his death, listing the two as twins below an engraved picture of a cat head, which, of course, PKD himself took as an ill omen hanging over his entire life.
No fucking duh.
Is that bullshit?
Like,
Is the etching?
you
is the
see
etching
that?
Bullshit?
That's gonna be your spot when you
Wow.
die next.
Yeah.
Jesus.
John, you were saying something?
Oh, I was saying, is the etching bullshit?
No. There's actually a picture of a cat on the grave, which is delightful, I suppose, but odd. I don't know whether or not that was originally put there or whether it was put on after he had grown up a bit. Who knows?
Gotcha.
So his time in Chicago in the 30s was largely unpleasant, as Philip was an ostracized child. Other boys purportedly threw stones at him frequently while he hid beneath parked cars, growling at them like a dog in the hopes of keeping them at bay.
As you do.
Yeah.
What?
Play crazy. That's it is the 30s, mind you. So, I mean, they weren't really aware of social ills as well as we are now, but the Dick family later moved to the San Francisco Bay Area, and there's no joke there, I assure you. And when Philip was 5, his father was transferred to Reno, Nevada for work. Dorothy, however, refused to move, leading her and Joseph to divorce. Both fought for custody of Philip, which was ultimately awarded to Dorothy. Determined to raise Philip alone, she took a job in Washington, D.C., and subsequently relocated there. So I don't want to move to Reno. Fuck you. I'll move to DC, completely across the country. That seems reasonable.
I mean, like, it's Reno. Like, what else is out there?
I mean,
so,
according to Michael Stipe, you'll be a star.
Oh.
A star.
Okay, then.
Yes, indeed. There is a starman waiting in the sky. Dick stated that he read his first science fiction magazine, Stirring Science Stories, in 1940. I should say, wow, I jumped over a sentence there. In June 1938, Dorothy and Philip returned to California after having lived in D.C. for a moment, and it was around this time he became interested in science fiction, reading his first magazine in 1940. Philip attended Berkeley High School in Berkeley, California, later attending the University of California, Berkeley as well. He and fellow science fiction author Ray Bradbury were members of the same high school class of 1947, but actually didn't know each other at the time,
Bullshit.
strangely enough. What's that?
Bullshit.
They did know each other.
No, they didn't know each other.
Oh.
What are you calling bullshit on, though?
That they went to the same class.
It was not Ray Bradbury.
Okay.
I'll give you that one. It was Ursula Le Guin was the other individual. Ray Bradbury actually grew up in Tucson.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
No shit.
Yeah. See, you say that I throw in a bunch of lies, and, you're going to get one eventually. I'm telling you. Well done. All right, so PKD did not declare a major in college, aimlessly taking classes in history, psychology, philosophy, and zoology until dropping out due to issues of overwhelming anxiety. So...
Zoology?
Yes, zoology, strangely enough.
Okay.
A man after your own heart, apparently.
I was going to say also same.
Wants to walk with the animals, talk with the animals, do everything but fuck with the animals.
Also same.
Is it?
No, that's legally I have to say yes.
Fine point.
Okay.
So while at Berkeley, though, he befriended poet Robert Duncan and poet and linguist Jack Spicer, who gave Dick ideas for a Martian language that he would utilize later on. Philip described himself as an acosmic pantheist, believing in the universe only as an extension of God. So after reading the works of Plato and pondering the possibilities of metaphysical realms, he came to the conclusion that, in a certain sense, the world is not entirely real, and there is no way to confirm whether it is truly there. This question from his early studies persisted as a theme in many of his novels. In other words, Dick believed that existence is based on internal human perception, which does not necessarily correspond to the external reality. Subsequently, man, I am just dying tonight, folks. I'm sorry. Subsequently, based on this theme's presence in his work, he is sometimes credited as the grandfather of the concept of existing in a fabricated reality or simulation, based particularly on his work Vulcan's Hammer, which was published in 1960. To offer you a quick plot synopsis, in 2029 CE, the Earth is run by the Unity organization after a devastating world war. Now, granted, this is written in 1960, so think about the resonant themes that we'll find later on. Unity runs the planet, controlling humans from childhood education onward through the Vulcan series of artificial intelligences, but is fought by the Healer movement. So there is a religious sect that is opposed to this. Unity director William Barris discovers that the Vulcan 3 computer has become sentient, and it is considering drastic action to combat what it sees as a threat to itself. Vulcan 3 has been kept ignorant about information related to the Healer revolutionary movement by managing director Jason Dills, who is still loyal to its also sentient predecessor Vulcan 2. Vulcan 2 fears that it will soon be superseded by Vulcan 3 and previously established the Healers as a movement to overthrow its successor.
Ooh, okay.
So it's creating a group of anti-robots to fight the computer that will follow it. Ultimately, at the end of the novel, Barris uncovers the reality that the bulk of human society are mentally enslaved by the original, and you guessed it, also sentient, Vulcan program through a lifetime of indoctrination and medicinal dependency. And the Healer resistance against their AI overlords always begins with a psychedelic injection to engage and enslave the human subconscious. This shot overwhelms the subjects' cortical functions, forcing them to believe they are contributing to an ongoing struggle for human existence, while their bodies merely lay prone, unable to resist a machine onslaught. The book's end depicts humanity on the brink of extinction, with no one left to effectively combat the invading mechanized legions. This resolution is the first in a slew of dour dystopian endings Dick would become famed for, and this work in particular is frequently referenced as a major influence for the plots of James Cameron's The Terminator and the Wachowskis' concept for The Matrix originally. Dick sold his first story, Rogue, in 1951 when he was 22. The story involved a dog who imagined that the garbage man who came every Friday morning was stealing valuable food the family had carefully stored away in a safe metal container, offering motivation for the dog to attack them.
I like that. That's an interesting, like...
But is it bullshit?
It is not bullshit. That was the
Good.
concept of his first
that's true
work.
for every dog.
Uh-huh.
I like it.
I was like, now I have to just figure out what if they think that mailmen are delivering something intended to harm their owners, and so that's why they attack them. There's got to be rationale here. But following the publication of that work, Philip began working as a full-time author. Now, the 1950s were a difficult and impoverished time for Dick, who once lamented that he couldn't even pay late fees on a library book. He published almost exclusively within the science fiction genre, but dreamt of a career in mainstream fiction, producing a series of non-genre, relatively conventional novels. I got a severe case of the cottonmouths here today, so I'm going to have to keep drinking.
He wrote sci-fi, and his dream was to just write, I wouldn't say bland, but just like...
He wanted to write, bestsellers. That was really ultimately what he hopes to get to.
Okay. The way that you worded it made it sound like he didn't want to do anything specific. He just wanted to write fiction.
Yeah, he wanted to be mainstream.
Okay.
That was really what he was hoping for. Subsequently, like if you read The Man in the High Castle, in spite of the fact that it does have a decent amount of sci-fi elements, that is one of his most conventional, sort of straightforward novels as far as storytelling goes.
Okay.
Because some of his stuff goes significantly around the bend. If Vulcan's Hammer gives you any indication. Like, there's a bunch of stuff from Vulcan's Hammer I didn't touch on as well. Like, they have the drones that follow everybody around and monitors all of human activity are owls. And this precedes the original Clash of the Titans. So, like, there's this mechanized owl thing that then somehow manifests itself in this movie. So a lot of very weird tendrils of his influence that make it out that you don't really think of until you're exposed to some of this stuff. So, in 1963, a little light finally filtered through the oppressive gloom hovering over his literary career, and Dick won the Hugo Award for The Man in the High Castle, as I just alluded to, an alternative history novel wherein the Axis powers won the Second World War, and America was subdivided between the German and Japanese empires. Although hailed as a genius in the science fiction world, the mainstream literary world still was unappreciative of PKD's efforts, and he was mostly relegated to publishing works via low-paying science fiction publishers such as Ace. Even in his later years, he continued to have financial troubles and was prone to bouts of despondency. This is evidenced in the introduction to the 1980 short story collection The Golden Man, wherein he wrote, "Several years ago, when I was ill, Robert Heinlein offered his help. Anything he could do, in fact. We'd never met, and yet he would phone me to cheer me up and see how I was doing. He wanted to buy me an electric typewriter, God bless him. One of the few true gentlemen in this world. One time when I owed the IRS a lot of money and couldn't raise it, Heinlein loaned me the money. I think a great deal of him and his wife. I dedicated a book to them in appreciation. Heinlein is a fine-looking man, very impressive and very military in stance. You can tell he has a military background, even to the haircut. He knows I'm a flipped-out freak, and still, he helped me and my wife when we were in trouble. That is the best in humanity there. That is who and what I love." This is, of course, an apt place to dovetail into the marital discord that Dick suffered throughout his publishing years.
What?
He was married 5 times in total, with an array of relationships sandwiched in between.
Would you say that Dick went everywhere?
It's possible. Dick certainly got around.
Dick went a few places. You never know where you are going to find or see Dick.
He boldly went where many, many, many others had gone before.
Hashtag relationship goals.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Do androids dream of electric dick? Is that what you're trying to drive at here?
Vibrators?
What?
Never mind.
All right, we're going to go back to my original joke that was written in here. I'm going to pull a Michael. So my
Yay.
joke is, to crib from Ian Malcolm, he was always on the lookout for a future ex-Mrs. Dick.
That's a good one. I'm glad that you wrote that.
Bless you. So Philip's friends paint a vivid picture of a man who, when angry, would stamp his feet, wave his gun, and rip off his shirt like the Incredible Hulk. Apparently...
Bullshit. That sounds like something your grandfather had done.
No.
Oh.
My grandfather did dramatically different things in public.
Fair enough.
In any event, apparently, Dick and Hunter Thompson would have gotten along famously based on their general activities. By late 1958, PKD was already a modestly successful writer with 2 marriages behind him when he met the woman who became his 3rd wife, Anne Rubinstein. However, they bickered perpetually until 1963, when Dick allegedly attempted to push her off of a cliff. When that failed, he then insisted that it was she, instead, who was trying to kill him, and had her committed to a psychiatric hospital.
Oh my god.
Well,
Yes, so talk about a just and loving experience, I suppose.
Yeah.
I'm so glad those hospitals aren't around because I feel like I would have ended up in one by now.
Jonah was calling to get you interred very quickly.
There's still time.
So, Dick then kindled a relationship with a fan, Grania Davis, but subsequently is purported as having tried to kill her and himself by driving his VW Beetle off of the road.
What the hell is wrong with this man?
It's a pretty intense experience to love him.
He has a lot of things. It's like dating me, apparently. He failed,
really hard.
naturally, but was seriously hurt in the accident and was forced to recuperate in a full body cast for several months.
oof.
Then, in 1966, Nancy Hackett, 17 years Dick's junior, became wife number 4, and at this juncture, his drug consumption went into overdrive. Now, he had abused amphetamine for much of the previous decade, stemming in part from his need to maintain a prolific writing regimen due to the financial exigencies of the science fiction field. Dick had written between 3 and 6 books annually for nearly the entirety of his career up to that point.
Is that bullshit?
No.
Holy crap.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
So,
man. Like
this...
Stephen King does like what, 2 a year?
Uh-huh. And this is him at a pretty prolific pace. No, PKD was ridiculous and relentless.
Crazy.
Largely owing to the amphetamine. This naturally placed a pretty significant strain on him mentally and physically, as you would expect. So, following the release of 21 novels between 1960 and 1970, these developments were exacerbated by unprecedented periods of writer's block, with Dick ultimately failing to publish new fiction until 1974, a year, we'll discover, burdened with a significant degree of personal meaning to PKD. The wheels on Phil's little red wagon would all but fall off before that time, however. He wrote to a friend, and this is the most Michael turn of phrase I can throw here, "Loss of memory. Had Nancy hide my gun. Bees in head. Delusion was that an alien outside force was controlling my mind and directing me to commit suicide." I should probably have given a trigger warning, because we're going to have a lot of talk about self-harm and suicide attempts going forward, so friends and neighbors, brace for impact.
I am inclined to say that the bees is bullshit.
The bees is not bullshit, which is why I was the most delighted human being on the planet when I found this. I was like, firstly, he's either Michael and Sam Camacho's baby, and
why?
Manifesting alien entities controlling their mind, because we've both heard that particular scream before, John.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's a grand time. So, no, he had bees in his brain.
Now I'm going to have nightmares.
Would you say he had a hive mind?
Maybe.
Ha-ha!
Thank you. I needed that. All right. So, brace for impact. Talk of self-harm and problematic issues with animals going forward. By 19...
Not Yes.
I'm kidding.
It keeps happening.
I
By
hate this podcast.
You're not alone. By 1968, he had become obsessed with sheep and was devoted to a small herd that he and Nancy kept at their California home, serving as the inspiration for one of his most popular works, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? By 1971, Dick was on 70 pills a day, had split with Nancy in a rather acrimonious fashion, and moved into a grubby house in San Rafael, California. Now, friends recall him having a revolving cast of dangerously odd housemates during this time. One kept loaded rifles under his bed and was sure the FBI was out to get him. Another imagined that aphids were crawling all over his skin and would douse himself with bug spray until he had to be rushed to the hospital.
70 pills? Really?
Yep.
Wow.
Oh,
The
I
bug
get into
spray?
this. If you've ever seen A Scanner Darkly, he actually memorializes these characters in that story. So in the opening sequence of the filmic version, there is a character who's sitting and just dousing himself with bug spray because he thinks aphids are crawling all over his body.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he had an interesting cavalcade of folks who were apparently all very into Ken Kesey. But I digress. So, Dick then bought a pistol and prowled around the house late at night, peering through the blinds. Apparently he thought he lived at Stardust Ranch, because he would often ring the police to express his concerns, among them that aliens were out to get him, or that he had somehow become an android and was a danger to humankind. That's what amphetamines will do for you, folks.
Wait,
Oh, man.
he actually thought he was an android?
He thought he was an
Like a
android.
replicant?
Yes.
Okay.
A lot of his work is very autobiographical. You don't really get that until you read some of his general functionality in life. But yeah, there's a lot of him in his work.
Okay.
So
I can see that now.
Dick gets everywhere.
Yes.
Indeed. So later that year, in November, Dick returned to his home to discover it had been burglarized, with his 1,100-pound asbestos and steel filing cabinet that protected his various manuscripts was blown open as though by a bomb, and his personal papers were missing. Euphoric, he rang the cops and shouted, "You see? I'm not so paranoid after all!" The authorities' response was to ask him if he had staged the robbery as a stunt, something that Dick himself later admitted was perfectly plausible, bearing in mind the quantities of drugs that he had been taking.
Oh my God.
The police ultimately couldn't determine a culprit, still suspecting Dick of having done it himself as a possible act of insurance fraud, as well as his ex-wife Nancy attempting to recoup some of her personal belongings, which Philip had refused to allow her access to. So, the man's life is an enigma, to crib from Michael.
Oh, for sure.
Shortly thereafter, he was invited to be the guest of honor at the Vancouver Science Fiction Convention in February of 1972. And this part concerns you, Michael. Legal woes arising from his having left the country, while the ongoing investigation into his home burglary are said to have been the foundation of Dick's paranoia about being tracked by the authorities later on in his life. But within a day of arriving at the Canadian conference and giving his speech, The Android and the Human, so we're seeing this theme all over again, Philip informed people that he had fallen in love with a woman named Janice, whom he met there, and announced that he would be remaining in Vancouver. A conference attendee, Michael Walsh, movie critic for the local newspaper The Province, or The Province, if you're going to, accurately reflect the Canadian parlance, invited Dick to stay at his home, but was subsequently forced, he was tasked with kicking Dick out of his house 2 weeks later due to Philip's erratic behavior. Janice then immediately ended their relationship and moved away. So he stayed in Canada and she got the fuck out. So this gives you an idea of the sort of impact that this man has on your life if you get romantically entangled. Dick's no good.
Janice.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, you farted right in my butthole. That's
And that's why she left.
Like a heart
indeed.
transplant.
If y'all haven't seen that video, you need to go check it out. I don't know why I suddenly became Texan, but yeah, y'all need to go.
Y'all need to go
No.
see that. Tell you what.
So, after Janice ended their relationship on March 23rd, 1972, Dick attempted to dispatch himself by taking an overdose of the sedative potassium bromide. Subsequently, after deciding to seek help, Dick became a participant in Ex-Calais, oddly enough, a Canadian Synanon-type recovery program.
Bullshit.
No. Not bullshit.
Oh, fuck.
And was sufficiently recovered by April to independently return to California. I mentioned this also as well. He apparently had some very interesting run-ins with Synanon. In his book, Valis, in the opening chapter, he has a woman who apparently was referred to Synanon, and she walked into the Synanon house and killed herself while people were watching because they were hazing her as she came in and saying that you don't deserve to be here, you should be dead. And so she just walked up to the top of the building and offed herself. So this is the opening chapter of that book.
I think I mentioned that at one point. I think
probably
it was the first episode. Yeah.
So there's a lot of very interesting tendrils for everybody that run through this episode, but I was absolutely giddy when I saw this. So he was not very tickled with Synanon, was not impressed with them. But Ex-Calais apparently did him a world of good, so who knows? Maybe there's another episode just waiting for you to unspool it.
Probably not.
All right. But upon relocating to Orange County, California, at the behest of California State University Fullerton professor Willis McNelly, whoa, who,
whoa, McNelly.
Sorry. Who had apparently initiated correspondence with Dick during his Ex-Calais stint. Dick befriended a circle of Fullerton State students that included several aspiring science fiction writers, including K.W. Jeter, James Blaylock, and Tim Powers. Jeter, it's interesting to note, would later continue Dick's Blade Runner series by publishing 3 sequels on his own, which I have not read, but I need to go investigate. Did you say something, John?
I said that's true. That's no fooling.
No fooling. Yeah, there are 3 Blade Runner sequels out there in the world that I've never encountered.
You know, also there's a new anime that just premiered too.
Yes, I had heard about that. So this is topical and timely. Go figure. For once.
Yeah, I watched the first episode a couple nights ago. It's very interesting. It's the traditional Blade Runner thing where I have a feeling it's going to take at least another hour or two to like show you where it's going. But
right.
Anyhow,
I'm excited to see it. So, PKD then returned to the events of these months while writing his novel A Scanner Darkly, which was published in 1977, containing fictionalized depictions of the burglary of his home, his time using amphetamines, and living with an array of eccentric addicts, as well as his experiences with Ex-Calais, which is portrayed in the novel A New Path. Or As New Path, sorry. A factual account of his recovery program participation was portrayed in his posthumously released book, The Dark-Haired Girl, a collection of letters and journals from the period. In February of 1974, Philip was home recovering from dental surgery when he claims to have been suddenly touched by the divine. So be prepared for your new dose of God this week, friends.
Oh, joy.
The doorbell
I'm so excited
rang.
for John.
The doorbell rang, and when Dick opened the door, he was stunned to see what he described as a girl with black hair and large eyes. Very lovely and intense. I feel like I'm back reading fan fiction here.
It sounds like fan fiction.
Wearing a gold necklace with an ichthos symbol. She was there to deliver a new batch of medication from the pharmacy. After the door shut, Dick was blinded by a flash of pink light, and a series of visions ensued. He came to believe that her necklace shot him with an intelligent pink beam of light, giving him secret religious knowledge, a certain degree of clairvoyance, and a particularly bad case of time displacement. First came images of abstract paintings, followed by philosophical ideas, and then sophisticated engineering blueprints. Dick believed the pink light was a spiritual force which had unlocked his consciousness, granting him access to esoteric knowledge. Much like this podcast. In the following...
I feel like his pills were just a little too late to be delivered.
Apparently. I haven't heard of withdrawals doing this before, but who knows? Many short, sharp shocks to the head might have caused some problems, but...
Or 70 pills all on the same day.
Yeah, that might happen.
Yeah, something about the, minor overdose in your system right now. But
Yeah. What are you going to do? So in the following months, the visions continued. He compiled an 8,000-page journal of handwritten notes in which he documented his visionary experiences, not least the degree to which he occupied multiple planes of existence as, variously, an award-winning novelist, Gnostic Superman, and time-traveling heretic. Still with me?
Was he friends with Frank Herbert?
You would think, but no, not quite. So... Firstly, scenes of ancient Rome appeared, superimposed over Dick's suburban neighborhood in California. A local playground phased into a Roman prison. Where there was a chain-link fence, Dick saw iron bars, and where there were children playing, he saw weeping Christian martyrs about to be fed to lions.
¿Por qué no las dos?
Si se puede. Dick saw pedestrians dressed in Roman military uniforms, stone walls, and iron bars. I hadn't gone back in time, Dick wrote to a friend, but in a sense, Rome had come forward, by insidious and sly degrees, under new names, hidden by the flack talk and phony obscurations, at last into our world again. Twice he reported being possessed by Hellenic spirits kind enough to teach him Koine, or New Testament Greek. These experiences then led Dick to theorize that time had stopped in 70 AD, the year the Temple of Jerusalem was destroyed by a Roman siege. Everything that happened afterwards was an illusion, and the world was still under Rome's dominion. Dick believed the Roman Empire was embodied in the tyrannical Nixon administration.
No,
Damn,
bullshit.
Nixon and his Caesar-like attitudes.
Nixon is bullshit.
No, Nixon is not bullshit. This was during that time frame, friends.
Oh,
Write
my
this all so that you
God.
could
And
flirt.
Watergate was like Caesar crossing the Rubicon.
Apparently.
He crossed the river, Watergate, it makes all the sense.
Okay.
I totally believe it.
You got Dick on the brain.
Oh, I got Dick on the brain
Shane,
hard.
Did you write this just so that you could flirt with Michael for 45 fucking minutes?
It seems like it, doesn't it?
It seems like an
Uh,
apology
I'm
episode.
interested.
Yeah, like I said, I knew that this was going to intrigue everybody. And somewhere superfan Steven is loving this up as well. He was very excited to encounter this. And of course, the Nixon administration was responsible for the assassination of the Kennedys and Martin Luther King Jr., of course, as emissaries of Rome.
No.
Well, since time is, an illusion, everything after 70 AD, they could have. Since they're not going back in time, and since, time is going forward to him.
Hey, Stephen King,
it's all about him.
He taught us the past is obdurate.
Yes.
Doesn't want to change.
Ka is a wheel.
Kaka is a wheel, yes.
Thank you, Eddie. All right, so his own role, mind you, in this advanced history was that of an undercover Christian revolutionary fighting to overthrow the empire. This
Same.
is why the delivery... Thank you. This is why the delivery girl, who might have been Courtney, who knows, had flashed him the fish sign.
Yeah, it
Ew.
was me.
I think this is the fabled mating signal that we've been waiting for since episode 2. Flashed him the fish sign. Some of this information, he claimed, was provided by three-eyed extraterrestrial time travelers who entered his bedroom through a portal of pink light. I shit you not, he was living on Stardust Ranch and just didn't know it.
That's bullshit. He said that the intelligent pink light gave him all this information. Now he's getting it from a secondhand source. It's not even the light. It's
he said
travelers through the light.
The sentence is some of this information was then imparted to him later by these three-eyed extraterrestrial time travelers.
Shit.
They were-
Shit's layers.
Yes, three-eyed, three-horned, flying purple people eaters. All of these concepts contributed to his Valis trilogy, which fizz and thrum with allusions to Gnosticism, Greek philosophy, Jungian psychology, and 1960s acid rock. Yes, friends, we will talk about the White Rabbit. But there's a considerable difference of opinion among various PKD enthusiasts about what it all meant. Was it a psychotic break or a religious experience? And how would he
Or
even
both?
tell the difference?
Why not both?
Exactly. All that Dick knew was that what he called his divine madness would come across as mental illness. By his own admission, he grappled with paranoia and self-deprecatingly labeled himself a flipped-out freak. The paranoia was probably the result of speed. As we alluded to earlier, Dick used amphetamines routinely to maintain his productivity. So, friends recalled that his refrigerator was stuffed with bottles of amphetamine pills jammed next to pre-made milkshakes. He would then gulp the pills by the handful, chasing with the milkshakes in an attempt to avoid ulcerated conditions or gastrointestinal distress. He called them alternately his happiness pills or his nightmare pills.
It depends on the time of day.
Yes, or the mood that he was in, or what the flavor of the milkshake was, apparently.
Oh my good God.
Oh, this is vanilla. It's a nightmare day,
Nightmare
guys.
day.
It's a nightmare day.
No bones. You're all pointing at me. I don't know who wants to talk first.
Courtney.
I think he was actually using the amphetamine to maintain his girlish figure while drinking all those milkshakes.
It's a fine point.
It's fair.
Yeah.
It's all about checks and balances, if we've learned nothing from the American government.
Gotta do it for the booty.
All right. So once his addiction officially went into high gear, so did the paranoia. While walking in the country, Dick had a vision of a vast visage of perfect evil spanning the sky. It had empty slots for eyes. It was metal and cruel, and worst of all, it was God.
Ah!
That image would stand as the inspiration for yet another of his more impactful works, and my favorite novel of his, The Three Stigmata of Palmer Eldritch. I will skip over this because we're a bit into this and I don't need to explain, but it's a lot of fun. It's an interesting sort of fusion of a lot of his other concepts like precognitives and people living on Mars and terraforming the planet, so they have to create small little doll houses and then trip balls and project themselves into that to avoid feeling like they're being overwhelmed by being trapped below ground.
I sincerely hope that everyone listening is drunk or stoned or both.
Uh-huh.
Because you are tripping it all out.
This is what's funny is I was talking about this. I was like, it's so funny that I was an acolyte of like Hunter Thompson and Philip K. Dick and Chuck Palahniuk, having never done a drug in my life. Like, all of this is apparently how I'm assimilating what it feels like to be stoned, apparently. But anyway.
Could I, does the book explain why he said that empty slots were eyes?
Yes.
Okay. All right. That's fine. As long as there's an explanation for that, because I was confused.
There are three indicators of this sort of grand galactic. So it's Palmer Eldritch's. He went out. It's an astronaut who explored the further reaches of space and came back, but is possessed by some grand cosmic consciousness. And that's one of the ways that it manifests, is that the eyes go vacant. A metal hand appears on people who are infested with that consciousness. Like, it's an interesting book.
Oh, okay.
I like it a lot.
Got it.
But
okay.
So if you get a wild hair, I'll let you borrow it. I'm sure you'd enjoy it.
Ooh.
In any event, the Divine Madness of 1974 was somewhat different. Although it included paranoid elements, the most obvious being the nefarious Roman Empire lurking beneath all the appearances of reality, there was a bit more to it than that. Dick felt guided by tutelary spirits. Following their advice, he took better care of his health and made clever business decisions. In one instance, a hallucinated voice urged him to seek medical care for his infant son for what turned out to actually be a hernia.
Whoa.
Dick's judgment improved. He felt more alive. In a sense, his divine madness drove him saner. Sadly, this did not last. Eventually, the divine spirit abandoned him. Spiritually, abandoned and in despair, Dick again attempted suicide. He overdosed on his blood pressure medication and slit his wrists. He then climbed into his car and turned on the engine with the door closed. He hoped that if the overdose and the slitting of the wrists didn't do him in, the carbon monoxide would. His attempts, unfortunately, failed.
Did he actually do all that?
Yes, actually did all of this. He apparently vomited up the medication, his wrists coagulated, and the engine stalled. So to crib from John's, pervading sentiment these days could be rain and titties, and he'd get hit with a
dick.
With himself.
Yeah,
with
with
himself. Thank you. Yes.
Wow.
All right. So for the rest of his
man.
life, Dick was obsessed with his close encounter with the pink light. Trying to make sense of it, he wrote his commentary, which that 8,000-page index of his thoughts became his exegesis. In it, he proposed that the source of the pink light may have been God, the KGB, a satellite, aliens, an unknown entity he dubbed Q, a first-century Christian named Thomas with whom he was in telepathic communication, the CIA, a version of himself from a different dimension, or possibly his deceased twin sister contacting him from the spirit world.
Bullshit on the unspecified intelligence named Q.
Thank you.
Yes.
I told you I gave you a layup here, friend, so...
I was like, that's Star Trek.
Or an Anon.
Oh, I guess that too.
I appreciate that you went Star Trek first, though, because it worked either way, so well done.
He has to for legal reasons.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Yes.
Each new theory seemed to telescope outward into further possible theories ad infinitum. Strangely, given the counterculture messaging in his work and the Kafkaesque authoritarians in the Minority Report, Adjustment Team, and Flow My Tears, the policeman said, Dick was also a government informant.
No.
For what?
No, he wasn't.
However,
For the Roman Empire, of course.
this was not a formal position. As we learned earlier, he was very fond of calling up the cops. He also called up the FBI. So he would routinely contact any number of authorities unbidden to accuse fellow writers and academics of being Marxists, alien emissaries, or enemy agents. For example, in 1974, he contacted the FBI to notify them that the Polish author Stanislaw Lem was, in fact, a creation of a team of Soviet writers whose job was to spread anti-American propaganda, presumably via abstruse science fiction. The FBI didn't respond to Dick's claim, but it's worth noting that aside from actually being a real fucking person, Lem was actually a devoted fan of his accuser.
Oh, that's so sad.
Yeah, 6 months later, unaware of these allegations, Lem actually wrote an essay dismissing all American science fiction authors but PKD. He listed Dick alone as a visionary amongst charlatans.
Never meet
That's
your
so
heroes, kids.
Sad.
Exactly. So while Dick never settled on a definitive explanation of what happened to him, he did explain why his divine madness was so captivating. Before the visions, he felt alienated for most of his life, an observer in a strange world. But in 1974, it seemed as if the world changed to accommodate me, so that I was, as a result of this radical change, no longer a stranger here. It became my world, and my anxiety, which tormented me day and night, departed. All of a sudden, I fit in. For a short time, he had a place in the universe. It, referring to the entity he felt had taken over his body, from inside me looked out and saw the world did not compute, and that I and it had been lied to. It denied the reality and power and authenticity of the world, saying, "This cannot exist. It cannot exist." It seized me entirely, lifting me from the limitations of the space-time matrix. It mastered me as, at the same time, I knew that the world around me was cardboard, a fake. Through its power of perception, I saw what really existed, and through its power of no-thought decision, I acted to free myself. It took on in battle, as a champion of all human spirits in thrall, every evil, every iron-imprisoning thing. Again?
There is no spoon.
It's not difficult to see why fans of The Matrix might see Dick as a pre-Neo anomaly.
Yeah, he's basically just Neo. Yeah.
Yes. So, I actually had to pull that from, there's a YouTube video of him giving a speech about having gone through this, and that is directly lifted from him just extemporaneously speaking. So you can imagine what he was like at cocktail parties. Following years of drug abuse and this series of mystical experiences in 1974, Dick's work engaged more explicitly with issues of theology, metaphysics, and the nature of reality, as in the novels A Scanner Darkly, Valis, and The Transmigration of Timothy Archer, which is another one of my favorite titles just in general. Rolls trippingly off the tongue. He unfortunately passed away in 1982 in Santa Ana, California, at the age of 53 due to complications from a stroke. Following his death, he became widely regarded as a master of imaginative, paranoid fiction in the vein of Franz Kafka and Thomas Pynchon. Ultimately, Dick published more than 40 novels and 121 short stories, as I alluded to, in a career that spanned just 30 years. Sadly, he never lived to see one of his books turned into a major film or full-length television series, although he came tantalizingly close. Blade Runner was released 3 months after his death, which, unfortunately, by which time he was still financially floundering and mentally deteriorating, and the film wouldn't have given him much incentive at all because it was considered a theatrical flop, which only truly found its fan base through home video release, but we digress. So, his posthumous influence, however, has been widespread, leaving a lasting mark on the American pop cultural consciousness. As many as 44 films and television shows are based on his works, including, of course, Blade Runner, Total Recall, which has been adapted twice, Minority Report, Paycheck, A Scanner Darkly, The Adjustment Bureau, Blade Runner 2049, The Man in the High Castle, all of these things. Myriad works that have all escaped out. So, a point that we can conclude on, particularly given the troubled existence that he endured, involves an unfortunate association between mental illness and creativity in the minds of many. From the exploits of Vincent van Gogh to James Joyce, F. Scott Fitzgerald to Heath Ledger, an artist's pain is frequently seen as the necessary wellspring of their brilliance. It's tragic that one person's pain is seen as a necessity to craft enjoyment for others, but does help to recall that for some the act of creation is their bliss. It is that necessary distraction from the discord of their days which keeps them pressing forward. And if that determination and its outcomes helps others to appreciate and embrace their works, I can't cast aspersions at that rationale. But what I will leave you with are PKD's own thoughts on the postpartum nature of his own creative process, and I'm going to try not to get choked up because it bothers me, but what matters to me is the writing, he told Rolling Stone in 1974 during the height of his delirium. The act of manufacturing the novel, because while I'm doing it, at that particular moment, I'm in the world I'm writing about. I apologize, I don't know why this caught me, but it's real to me, completely and utterly. So, when I'm finished and I have to stop and withdraw from that world forever, that destroys me. The men and women have ceased talking. They no longer move, and I'm alone. So,
I mean, it makes sense why you get choked up by that.
Yeah.
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 Any creatives, you know?
Yeah.
It's very relatable.
It's something that I think we all kind of have a fixation on in and of itself, and it's helpful to cognitively reframe those. Through all of this, we do manage to help other people kind of get solace in experiencing those things. So we can ensure that countless others experiencing his work can receive a reprieve from that self-same isolation in the worlds that he created. So the aims were not in vain. But perhaps his perspective will help someone else find their own meaningful place in the universe, and that, to me, as one who has sought and subsequently found that particular peace from time to time, is a blessed form of comfort. So,
Agreed.
On this comedy podcast where I go to pieces at random...
But the thing is that you've threatened that this is who you are as a person.
Oh, yeah, we've known
never
this.
given anybody any proof. Well, I mean, at least on air.
Uh-huh.
So this is more the payoff.
I was going to say it is true because John was present for it. Like, I was supposed to conduct Sam's wedding, and then I cried through the entire run of their trying to get them to give their vows, and they were completely composed the entire time. And I'm up there bawling like a small child.
It's almost like they took you sucked all their emotions, like they just threw it into you so they didn't have to break composure, and you fell on that sword.
Melissa refers to herself as an emotional sponge, so apparently I've started to pick that up. But in any event, it's the first time we've had tears on the podcast, friends, so congratulations. That was bound to happen at some point, but...
Honestly, I'm gonna come.
Well, bless you. Okay. I think part of this is also having... Like when you feel like you're kind of an outlier yourself and never really connected with other people, and it's been something that's a barrier between you to feel other people have that same problem. It's something that resonates me, resonates me. It resonates with me very well. So I apologize for not composing myself there. But
there's no apologies needed.
No.
It's one of the reason why I think I connect with a lot of outsider art, if you will, so I can understand. But in any event, do y'all have any guesses about stuff that I may have been fibbing about before I went to pieces?
Your tears were a lie.
Flow my tears, the policeman said, and they did on this show. So there you are. Some fan service for you folks.
I swung it so much and missed almost everything that every
Nope.
shot that I took, I missed.
You
almost.
still got one, friend, so you made it through.
So I have no more shots because I took too many.
I'm too drunk. I cannot take any more. I'm cutting myself off.
Go home, Michael. You're drunk.
I said Michael.
For me,
never.
I'm never done as a fully fledged alcoholic. I'm never done with taking shots.
Okay.
The examples where he projected the Roman Empire. So the kids' playground was a Roman prison. The pedestrians were in full
Christian martyrs and all that. Yes.
Yeah. That's all bull. Was that
all
true? This okay.
He believed all of these things. Now, whether that actually occurred, of course, is always open to conjecture. But
I did want to note it sounded pretty pretentious when he said he didn't travel back in time. Time traveled forward to him.
Yes.
I was like, oh,
well,
okay, there.
He also, if you have ever encountered, I'm not sure if any of you have watched The Man in the High Castle.
No.
But there is.
I don't remember it.
It's in the book. There is actually several characters who see into the alternative reality. So there's kind of like two stories running parallel, and so there's a character who is sitting in San Francisco who actually is able to merge into our reality as he's sitting there, and he sees the Golden Gate Bridge being constructed. And so he actually places something into his mouth as like a talisman to root him to his reality, and that's what actually trips him full bore. So then he flashes into our universe for a bit. And so there's this weird parallel that runs where they know that there is an alternate reality where the Allies won, and they understand that this is what's happening, and that is what is fictionalized in the book, The Grasshopper Creeps Slowly Through the Grass, or whatever the heck the title of the book is, I forget. And so it very interesting, but he does have a lot of fascination with realities merging in and out. And so it's not shocking that he felt he encountered that himself. Anywho.
Interesting.
Long-winded explanation. But anything else there, Michael?
No. Other than that sounded like, there's a game about shooting Nazis and all that other stuff that they actually borrowed. I can't remember the game. Wolfenstein, thank you. Where that was actually one of the spoilers at one of the end of the most recent game or something like that, where they found a connection to our reality where the Nazis didn't win.
Okay.
And I didn't know that was from. I knew that they were making allusions to Man in High Castle, but I wasn't sure how similar to the actual source material that was.
Yeah, it's a really interesting book. It's been a minute since I've read it, and it's been a minute since I read a lot of these, but once I finished, I read Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep in 4 hours fairly recently, and I was like, oh, this is much better than I remember it. So I should probably delve into PKD here and see what's happening. But Courtney, you got anything for me?
Was the full body cast true?
Yes, he was stuck in a full body cast for a while.
That sucks.
And then maybe we kind of already guessed at this, but was the milkshakes a true thing?
Yes, the milkshakes were a true thing. I know. He's so hyperbolic as a human being in general. God. It's not hard to lie.
And did you clarify whether or not those milkshakes brought the boys to the yard?
I did not, unfortunately, but I can tell you they most certainly did. They also brought the boys in the house, and then they stayed.
Okay. Cool.
And they were like, damn, it's better than yours.
They could teach you.
Sorry.
Oh my God.
But
one step too far.
He would have charged because he needed the money, but that's beyond the point. Beside the point.
Broke fuck.
Through the point.
You mentioned at one point he had a son. Which of his wives was the unfortunate one to bear his child?
He had several children, and I didn't
Oh.
go into that because we would have spent a long time running through this. But yeah,
that's fair.
I don't recall, and some of this stuff I got from like a very interesting. The Sun UK had a whole thing about Philip K. Dick being a crazy wife murderer, or at least attempting to dispatch them, which I pulled a lot of this from. Where I was like, I had never heard this before in my life. So his relationships were fascinating. But okay.
Oh wait, speaking of his children, just because I'm thinking Joe Hill, off the top of your head, do you know if any of them became writers?
I don't believe so. I know his daughter has spoken about his work a lot of time, and I think she was one of the ones who is directly quoted in a lot of conversations about Blade Runner when it finally took off, because she was there kind of helping to more or less translate for her dad to Ridley
Fair.
Scott and some of the folks, because he was still a little around the bend at this point. And of course suffered a stroke to pass. So, but I don't know that any of them actually are authors. So,
Okay.
yeah. All right, so here are the 10, count them 10 lies that threw out here. So you got the first one right off the bat. So it was not Ray Bradbury that he went to high school with. It was Ursula Le Guin, as we mentioned. So while the theme of us living in a fabricated reality or simulation is very popular in a lot of his works, he is not frequently credited as being the father of the movement. Not a lot of folks.
I was going to say something about that. Because there's a lot of philosophical discourse on that. Like, I think Brain in a Jar, like, predates even that century, if I recall correctly. And then you also have Descartes and is like, I think therefore I am, and to doubt reality. And that was several hundred years before him. And
yes,
I didn't have the balls to call it.
Well, look at you. And then I fabricated the bulk of the end of Vulcan's hammer here, involving the 3 different iterations of the Vulcan program, all fighting. There are elements of that in there, and they do have the healer movement was created by Vulcan 2 to stave off Vulcan 3, but all of it taking over people's brains and using them as, rendering them still is something that I threw in there.
Well done.
So the drug use and human beings being indoctrinated from their youth by this and being pacified essentially is not true. Subsequently, it is also not a source that is listed for either James Cameron for the Terminator or the Wachowskis' concept of the Matrix as an inspiration.
God damn it.
I just drew those parallels myself for years, screaming to people. I was like, this is like Philip K. Dick stuff. Like, come on.
Look at it.
Yeah.
Look at it.
No one did. So that gets us through 4 of the lies. Lie number 5 is that the police did not actually think that Dick had blown up his own safe for insurance. They just thought he was a fucking nutcase. And they also did not believe that Nancy might have been trying to get some of her things back either. They just wrote him off as a complete, nutter and didn't say anything. So that's lies 5 and 6. Lie number 7, him attributing his being tracked by the FBI to his legal woes at having left the country while there was still an ongoing investigation into his home burglary is not something that he thought of. He was just paranoid because he thought aliens were trying to take over his brain and he was seeing alternate realities. Yeah. So he did not care much about having left while there was an ongoing investigation. Couldn't have cared less. Couldn't be bothered. And now to lie number 8. He there's no one knows why he drank the milkshakes. He didn't say that he was trying to avoid ulcers or gastrointestinal distress. He just had milkshakes and pills. That was his particular drug of choice, as it were.
See, that got me because I know I used to take amphetamines and they would give me bad acid reflux.
Do go on.
Medically prescribed amphetamines,
quote, unquote,
mind you.
Yeah.
Medically.
But they would give me bad acid reflux if I drank anything like akin to like orange juice or anything.
You're gonna make me cry again, Michael.
So, I'm sorry.
I understand I feel your distress.
I feel your distress, and I'm getting hard.
I will save my tears for you. So,
Please.
you did get the unknown entity that he dubbed Q as being one of the sources for the pink light. So congratulations. And then lie number 10 is that he did not ever accuse any of his other famed authors as being alien emissaries. He only said they were Marxist or enemy agents.
What a guy.
Damn.
Yes, bless him. He didn't think that there were actual aliens on the planet. He just thought they were trying to infiltrate his brain. So, delightful thing. So that is all 10 of the lies that I had for you in what was a pretty substantively chunky and text-heavy presentation. So thank you all for bearing with me.
No, thank you.
This is what happens when I'm given a month or so to do research. It winds up being very lengthy.
Yeah, you've had time to chunk more in there.
Indeed.
I am not complaining in the slightest.
Also, this
Absolutely
is
fascinating.
a very interesting individual here. I could have gone on. There's still, I only covered the highlights here. So yeah, this could have turned into Harlan Sanders again, and I tried not to do that. So I tried to distill as much as I could in one shot.
Well, I liked it. Like the cut of your jib, kid.
Well, thank you.
I don't think you can say that.
Just gonna have to cry at the end of every episode now, like my sex life. But,
Well, it'll be like how Michael cries at the end of every episode after the fact.
indeed.
Yes.
They hate me and my topic.
What's my motivation?
Guys, I'm sorry. I wrote such a bad episode. I know better.
Oh,
It's
see, mine is
fine.
entirely
It's no-
different.
that's
Mine is
different.
always like tears of gratitude. I just cuddle up with Melissa. I'm like, thank you for letting me do this. So, it's delightful. Well, since John did this last week, who's up next? John, are you gonna give us a topic next week?
Fuck no. Birds
We
are
doing
eating
the
my face.
Illuminati part 4?
No, I'm
This time with feeling?
So sad.
still chunking it out. 'Cause I'm liking that expression right now. What I
Chunking
have
it.
is probably going to be a 2-parter. I just need to, write it.
Hashtag
He's working on a
chunking it.
12-part series.
Chunking it.
Well, lovin' is what you got. I said, remember that.
Chunking is what I got.
I'm chunking here.
I'm chunking here.
Back where I'm from, guys, we got a little expression. I'm chunking. I'm chunking here.
Hey!
Welcome to Hoboken. You've never been more happy to chunk.
Home with the original chunk.
Yeah,
I'm gonna chunk.
I'm chunking over here. That's a post holidays eating. It's delightful.
Courtney, you said something about a friend saying that we're famous or something, and John and I took that to mean depressed.
No, we're famous, guys. No.
Do
So-
tell.
We were having dinner with some friends last night that we don't get to see very often. And somehow it came up, that I do a podcast. And I was like, yeah, we do podcasts, whatever. And Jonah's uncle, who's pretty close in age to us, goes, what's it called? And I go, oh, it's just the Disinformed podcast. And he goes, oh my God, you're TikTok famous. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he goes, you've been on my For You page. And I was like, yeah, that's how the algorithm works. You follow me, I follow Disinformed. That's how you got that on your page. And he goes, no, you're famous now. All of you, so famous.
If only. If
So-
only that's how it worked.
Congratulations, everybody. We're famous now.
I was gonna say Michael's
We made it.
wallet says otherwise, but
I just don't want people to treat me differently.
I make Philip K. Dick's wallet look like a millionaire.
indeed, I was gonna say they treat you differently because you hump their legs in public, John. That's just nothing to do with your fame or notoriety.
Just yelling about chunking at them.
Same reason that they avoid me like the plague, because I'm either crying or screaming at people not to fucking talk to me.
I can promise you one thing and one thing only, and that's if you give me enough compliments, you'll make me chunk.
Oh, I'm chunking. Chunking it up.
Oh.
Well, ladies and germaphobes, thank you for chunking with us this week. It was delightful. And I think I have a new tagline. Will be Heil Chunk Slingers.
I don't wanna.
Thanks, I hate it. Yeah.
Once you start chunking, you'll never stop.
Well, if you do, you'll clean it up. But We appreciate you all being here. Naturally, there is a link down in the show notes that will take you to all of our relevant socials so you can see just how famous we're not. And it's delightful. But Courtney is sustaining us over on the Talks of Tick, and of course on the Tubes of You, we make casual flirtations. You can find all of that stuff there. Go like, subscribe, tell us you love us, and give us a couple reasons why. We'd love to hear from you.
Do it. You won't.
But for the Disinformed podcast this week, don't you mash that nothing.
Chunk that like
Chunk
button.
that like button.
Smash that chunk button.
I was going to say, or
that
like
one
that
better.
chunk button. Yes, that's even better.
Man, I really accidentally woke something up inside of this poor guy.
Chunk.
Chunked him
Sloth
wide
love
open.
chunk, yes.
Poor Destiny's just going to be hearing about chunking for the next week.
That was a candy bar back in the late 80s, early 90s. I'm sure that you could probably still find one. Contained both nuts and raisins and chocolate, strangely enough.
That's strange.
Yeah, Nestle was hedging their bets on the Raisinets.
Fair enough.
How close
All right.
to copyright infringement could we get with Chunkin' Donuts?
Well, since they're no longer Dunkin' Donuts, they're just
what?
Dunkin'. We could very easily run with that.
So we're just chunking then?
And then if you're John, you're chunking D's nuts.
Ooh.
All
there you
over
go.
your face, neck, and chest.
Indeed. And yet again, Heil come slingers. And that's going to officially wrap it up like a rascally little condom, apparently, for this week. So
so.
keep on chunking, kids. Works if you work it. But for the Disinformed podcast this week, I'm Shane.
I'm John.
I'm Michael.
I'm Courtney.
And zippity zoop, we're out of here.
Chunk.